Grandma, this is Mia. Kevin's girlfriend, Mia, seemingly quiet woman with fair skin, greeted us with a nervous smile. I quickly ushered them inside the house. It was for a meet and greet that Kevin had brought her over, and my daughter-in-law, Chloe, was in good spirits, eagerly asking how the two had met. Evelyn, hurry up and serve them some coffee. Chloe's mood had soured just minutes earlier. The reason was Kevin had first told his parents that Mia was pregnant. I was so shocked I lost my voice. Chloe showed some discomfort at the fact they were having a shotgun wedding. We're serious about making this work. We know we're young, but please, allow us to marry. Both were sincerely asking for their parents' permission to marry. As a grandmother, I realized it was not my place to comment and silently watched, moved by their demeanor. However, Chloe made a visibly displeased face and waved her hand in front of her own face. A shotgun wedding is so tacky. Just because you're pregnant doesn't mean you have to marry, right? Isn't that right, Evelyn? Suddenly turned to me. What? I let out, as Chloe directed a sardonic smile my way. Yes, it's true. Just because there's a baby on the way doesn't necessarily mean marriage is a must. Kevin looked momentarily saddened. I had anticipated such a reaction. But you two are choosing to move forward because of this baby. Whatever the case, it's something Kevin and Mia have decided together. No one else has the right to object. Maybe what we can do, Chloe, is to support them, don't you think? Chloe downed her mug of coffee in one go. Evelyn, get me a refill, please. She handed it over, then crossed her arms and sighed. Well, opposing it is futile anyway. So, when are you planning the wedding? What? Oh, considering Mia's condition, we'd like to do it sooner rather than later. So, this means we're finally getting a break from parenting. Chloe said reflectively, then turned towards me in the kitchen. Now that we're going to be living as a family, we won't be needing a housekeeper anymore. Can you leave? What? The sudden words from Chloe took everyone by surprise. My son Charles, Kevin, and Mia were all left speechless. What am I supposed to do now? My name is Evelyn. I'm a 70-year-old grandmother. I live with my only son Charles, his wife Chloe, and their family in a 2-generation home. Though it may seem happy from the outside, I've felt somewhat downcast since losing my husband a few years ago. Chloe, my son's wife, is outspoken and tends to say whatever comes to her mind, and while we're not on bad terms, I've felt her using me for convenience. When Chloe goes out with friends, she takes for granted that I'll do the household chores and even asks me to drive her to the station. Chloe seems to think living together in a 2-generation home is her way of showing filial piety. Contrary to my wish for a quiet life after my husband's death, I find myself entangled in a complicated situation. Come on, get up already. From the bedroom of my son and his wife, Chloe's almost shrieking voice can be heard. Ah, she seems to be in a bad mood again. Though Charles was working till late last night, he was woken up at the usual time on his day off and hurried to get ready to go out. I quietly spoke to Charles when I encountered him in the washroom. Charles, are you okay? I'm fine, got about 5 hours of sleep. Charles smiled gently at me through the mirror while drying his face with a towel. Lately, Charles has been looking pale, and I've been worried. Despite my concerns, Charles would brush it off with, I'm fine, which was something my husband used to say. He kept working until one day, he suddenly collapsed and passed away. That memory is always with me, and I wish Charles could rest more on his days off. Loud footsteps approached. Chloe appears at the bathroom, frowning and visibly annoyed. How long are you going to wash your face? Hurry up, I'll be late for my meeting with friends. I'm sorry, I'll change right away. The meek Charles quickly left to change his clothes. Meanwhile, Chloe turned to me and handed over a note. Evelyn, this is the shopping list for today. Yes, I got it. Have fun with your friends. The weather seems nice today. Please wash the bed sheets as well. Chloe left without waiting for my reply. After watching her brazen departure, I sighed deeply. Even when my husband was alive, Chloe had always been bold in speaking her mind to us. In the beginning of our living together. Don't hold back. I had said to Chloe, but as time went on, her aggressive nature became more apparent. Cooking, which Chloe disliked, fell to me. If she disliked a dish, she would push the plate away saying, I told you I can't eat this, didn't I? Or she would complain about wrinkles in the laundry I had folded. Still, since she was chosen by my son Charles, I tried to keep a quiet smile and avoid causing trouble, but since my husband passed, Chloe's attitude has become more extreme, tiring my spirit. Evelyn, you're staying home all day, right? Make sure the bath is ready for me when I get back. Chloe said this without even looking at me as she left the house. Chloe goes out with her friends almost every week. Since the beginning of her marriage, she has seldom done housework or childcare, focusing more on her appearance and spending freely. She's very sociable, making acquaintances in various places. There were many instances that could have led to suspicions of infidelity when Chloe was younger, but Charles. She wouldn't do that. Trusted her without a doubt, so I didn't pursue it. I was surprised to see Charles, looking sleepy as he entered with his hands full of confectionery boxes upon returning from seeing off Chloe. Oh, this? It's for Chloe's class reunion next week. She's planning to give them out. Really? All of this? Chloe doesn't want to be embarrassed. She keeps saying she doesn't want people to think we're living with our parents because we're struggling for money. I'm sorry, but just let her do as she pleases. Of course, it's all right, don't worry. Sitting in the chair, I felt an overwhelming sense of exhaustion. Eventually, I took the list Chloe had given me and went out for the shopping. My familiar shoes felt heavier than usual. Perhaps due to my age, I often feel a dull pain in my knees with every step. Yet, imagining Chloe's likely snide remarks about wasting gas, I gently stroked my knees, encouraging them to keep going. Returning home, sweating and carrying shopping bags in both hands. I set down the bags at the entrance and stretched my bent back when my grandson Kevin appeared. Oh, Grandma, welcome back. No wonder you weren't home, you went out shopping. Kevin frowned slightly as he looked at the groceries I had bought. Kevin, the only son of Charles and Chloe, had become less visible around the house since starting his job last spring. Though we live together, he's often busy with work, coming home late and leaving early in the morning. And on his days off, he dresses up and goes out. It's rare for Kevin to be at home during the daytime on a weekend. Before I could even take off my shoes, Kevin took the shopping bags to the kitchen and began putting things away quickly. I glimpsed his expression and sensed a happy atmosphere. Did something good happen? Kevin smiled as he carefully placed eggs from a carton into the refrigerator. Actually, there's someone I want to introduce to you. I'm thinking of bringing her home next week. Introduce someone? As I processed what that meant, I realized my grandson had reached the age for such things. Introduce someone? Could it be what I'm thinking? It might be. Grandma, there's something I've been thinking about for a long time. Something you've been thinking about? Yes. I can't talk about it just yet, but I promise I will someday. But first, would you meet the person I want to introduce? Kevin spoke with excitement, and I couldn't help but smile. I was curious about what he had been thinking about, but more so about the kind of woman he would bring home. Growing up, Kevin had never brought a girlfriend home. His absence from home since starting his job, I realized, might have been due to dating. For the first time in a while, I forgot about the usual annoyances and hummed a tune while cleaning. Of course, I had informed Chloe and Charles about this matter, but Charles only muttered, "Marriage, huh?" while Chloe seemed unamused. On their next day off, Kevin brought the woman he wanted to introduce to our home. Chloe had asked me to clean up the front of the house, and while I was sprinkling water, I became a bit wary when an unfamiliar car stopped, but seeing my grandson waving from the driver's seat with a smile, I felt relieved. The car was a rental. Perhaps Kevin had gone to the trouble of renting a car to pick her up. I almost laughed inwardly, thinking Kevin must be quite smitten. "Grandma, this is Mia." I couldn't help but smile at the sight of my grandson's happy face as he introduced the woman next to him. Kevin's girlfriend, Mia, seemingly quiet woman with fair skin, greeted us with a nervous smile. I quickly led the two inside. It was for a meet and greet that Kevin had brought her over, and Chloe, in a good mood, eagerly asked how the two had become acquainted. Chloe and Charles sat at a table set for four, facing Kevin and Mia, while I prepared coffee for everyone in the kitchen. "Evelyn, hurry up and serve them some coffee." Chloe's mood had turned sour just minutes before. The reason was that Kevin had first told his parents that Mia was pregnant. I was so shocked I lost my voice. The previously warm atmosphere froze in an instant, with Kevin showing a seriousness which he usually does not. Chloe displayed some discomfort at the fact they were having a shotgun wedding. "We're serious about making this work. We might be young, but please, allow us to marry." Both were earnestly asking their parents' permission to marry. As a grandmother, I realized it was not my place to comment and silently watched, moved by their demeanor. Watching Kevin plead before his parents, I felt tears welling up. "Of course, we support your marriage. For the baby's sake, it's better to marry soon and settle down mentally." "Thanks, Dad," Kevin said with a smile, looking at Mia. Chloe made a visibly displeased face and waved her hand in front of her own face. "Shotgun weddings are so tacky. Can you even explain how this happened, Mia?" Taken aback by such an unexpected question, Mia was surprised. "What? And looked down at the table. Kevin quickly placed his hand on her shoulder. "Times have changed, this kind of marriage isn't unusual anymore. Besides, we have our own ways of thinking and are ready to work hard." "Kevin, you offered to marry because Mia got pregnant, didn't you? Are you sure this is a well-thought-out decision? Our relationship was serious from the start, aiming for marriage. It just happened that the baby gave us a good opportunity. Just because there's a baby doesn't mean you have to marry, right? Isn't that right, Evelyn?" Chloe suddenly turned to me. "What?" I let out, as Chloe directed a sardonic smile my way. Recalling a TV segment on single mothers we watched as a family recently, indeed. Having a baby doesn't necessarily lead to marriage, but this situation seemed different. Yes, it's true. Just because there's a baby on the way doesn't mean marriage is a must. Kevin looked momentarily saddened. I had anticipated such a reaction. So, I had prepared my next words carefully, thinking I'd proudly tell Kevin about it later. "But, you two are choosing to move forward because of this baby. Whatever the case, it's a decision made by Kevin and Mia together. No one else has the right to object. Maybe what we can do, Chloe, is to support them, don't you think?" An old person making irresponsible statements. What would she say next? Everyone probably wondered, but Chloe downed her mug of coffee in one go. "Evelyn, get me a refill," please." She handed it over, then crossed her arms and sighed. "Well, opposing it is futile anyway. So, when are you planning the wedding?" "What?" "Oh, considering Mia's condition, we'd like to do it sooner rather than later." "So, this means we're finally getting a break from parenting," Chloe said wistfully, then turned to face me, who was standing in the kitchen. "Since the family will be living together from now on, can we ask you, the no longer needed housekeeper, to leave?" "What?" "My son is getting married, and we want to live with just our cherished family from now on." Charles, taken aback by Chloe's sudden words, and both Kevin and Mia were left speechless in shock. "Once Kevin's child is born, they'll likely live here for a while, right? We don't want to trouble you with the baby's night crying." "No, I'm fine with that. If there's anything I can do." "I can't think of any advantage to living with someone who's likely to become a care-dependent elderly. You're no longer needed, so could you please leave?" Feeling as if my heart was being torn out, I didn't want to worry Kevin and the others, so "You're absolutely right," tried to smile bravely. At that time, I didn't take Chloe's words seriously. But day by day, Chloe's efforts to drive me out of the house became more blatant. "Please leave as soon as possible." She kept on saying so. When I consulted with Charles, the timid man could only hold his head and stay silent. What was especially shocking was the realization that Chloe was almost entirely in control of the inheritance from my husband, including the house. My husband, being a man of small desires, had left everything to our son Charles with the intention that all his property would be passed on to him. Effectively, I had no assets or property of my own. And since Charles was under Chloe's thumb, I was stunned to find myself stripped of both my home and inheritance. "What should I do now?" I murmured while looking through old albums of my late husband and I in the middle of the night. He was always gentle, never angry, just calm. Was it his nature that allowed Chloe to become so selfish? If so, I felt like the cause was both my husband and myself. Months passed. Despite the daily harassment from Chloe, unable to leave, I lived enduring it all. One day, while I was taking a shower, the water suddenly turned cold. I worried it was broken, but it seemed Chloe had turned off the water heater's power. Thinking she probably didn't know I was in the bath, I turned the power back on, but it was immediately turned off again. Realizing it was harassment. "Could you not turn off the power while I'm bathing?" I asked. "It's a waste of electricity." Only to be shouted at. There were even times in the dead of winter when I had to rinse off with cold water. Exhausted, I consulted Charles. "Could you bathe while Chloe is out?" But he could only weakly suggest. Wondering how he became so spineless, I sighed in disbelief. Even as Chloe said with a snide smile every time we met, "Please rent an apartment and live there as soon as possible." I was powerless to do anything. Amidst these oppressive days, a piece of bright news was brought in. Mia had finally given birth to a healthy baby. For a moment, Chloe and I celebrated wholeheartedly, tears in our eyes as we laughed together. "Now, if only you'd leave the house quickly, I'd truly be happy." Chloe's smile suddenly turned cold as she spoke to me. I doubted the woman's character before me. Charles looked away, pretending to be engrossed in the newspaper, as if he had nothing to do with it. Though Chloe was the one who strongly wished for Kevin and his wife to stay at our home, she wanted nothing to do with the baby's care. I did everything I could to help Mia, who always deeply thanked me despite being overwhelmed with caring for the baby. "Thank you so much for everything. Don't worry about it. You're going through the hardest time right now, and if there's anything I can do to help, I will." That was a heartfelt sentiment from me. After a particularly busy few months, Kevin suddenly said to me, "I have something important to tell you." "I'm listening." I responded while preparing dinner in the kitchen. Without stopping my chopping, I waited for Kevin to speak. Grandma, I want to talk to you alone. There's a place I want you to come to this Sunday. Let's keep it a secret from Mom and Dad. My hand holding the knife stopped. A secret from Chloe. When I looked at Kevin, he had a subtle smile as if trying to hide his joy. It was a look he often had as a child when he was plotting something secretly to make me happy. Kevin had always been close to me and my late husband since he was little. Looking back, maybe Chloe felt that her only son's affections were being stolen by me and my husband. That wouldn't have been fun for Chloe. Probably that feeling continues, and Kevin realized that when I'm with Chloe, I feel intimidated and can't speak my mind. I felt dearly loved by my kind grandson and his wife. Next Sunday, Kevin, Mia, and the baby led me to a newly built apartment, about a 10-minute walk from our house. Kevin shared that he had purchased this apartment before the baby was born as we walked. I was deeply surprised by his decisiveness to buy it without consulting Chloe, who had strongly suggested living together. Sorry for making you walk, Grandma. I need to strengthen my legs anyway. This distance is nothing. I lightly tapped my thin legs. Though just a 10-minute walk made my knees ache, I resolved not to mention it. The new apartment room was furnished simply, with boxes in the corner. Presumably belonging to Mia, who used to live alone before she got married. Kevin, familiar with the place, started making coffee in the kitchen, while Mia was putting the baby to sleep in another room. So, there's something I wanted to ask you. Kevin began speaking seriously after a brief pause. The ticking of the clock on the wall seemed unusually loud. Would you live with us? I was so surprised by the sudden proposal that I nearly dropped my mug. Kevin looked at me earnestly. Thinking it was a joke, I returned a strained smile, and Kevin looked away distantly. Ever since I was a child, I couldn't stand seeing Mom treating you so badly. Well, your mom has a bit of a strong personality, but you're always being told to leave the house, aren't you? Dad won't talk back, and I can't stand to see you being treated so poorly by Mom anymore. What are you talking about? I'm being treated fine. Remember when I said I had someone I wanted to introduce to you? I've been thinking about something for a long time. I vaguely remembered such a conversation. It was a while ago, but I distinctly remembered Kevin speaking with an implication of determination when he talked about getting married. I've been cherished by you and Grandpa since I was little, and I loved both of you. But somehow, I felt Mom was very rude towards you too. I've always watched the two of you and thought that when I grew up, I wanted to help. Kevin, did you really think that way? Kevin leaned forward decisively, looking into my eyes. Let's live together. There's no need for you to suffer alone in that house. Unable to respond, Mia quietly returned and sat next to Kevin. Mia seemed to have listened to the conversation from the next room and looked at me solemnly, understanding the context. Kevin told me about it. Would it be possible for you to live with us? That's a very kind offer. I'm truly happy. But I don't want to intrude on your newlywed life. That's not a problem at all. We need your help as an experienced parent, and it would be reassuring to have you live with us. And apparently, Mia had also been subjected to Chloe's harassment, feeling disgusted with her. Mia had been scorned for having a shotgun wedding and had been yelled at to quiet the baby during night crying. Initially, Mia had wanted to move back to her parents' house after giving birth, but so you hate being with me, I understand. Chloe would say so every time, and Mia was tired of explaining. We're asking you. Please, would you live with us? Kevin and Mia pleaded together. Silently watching them, I felt tears streaming down my face. Thank you. At that moment, no other words came to mind. Thus, it was decided that I would live with Kevin and his family. Of course, this news would soon reach Chloe's ears. As soon as I agreed to move in, Kevin apparently contacted Chloe and Charles. This was something I had asked Kevin to do. I was certain Chloe would strongly oppose to it. Telling myself this was my final battle, I left Kevin and his family at the apartment and headed home, opening the front door. As soon as I returned, Chloe summoned me to the living room and began yelling at me furiously. "What do you mean you're going to live with Kevin? You're joking, right?" "No. I'm grateful for Kevin's offer and I've decided to accept it." "You're kidding, right?" Chloe scoffed. Beside her, Charles frowned, his face troubled. "Moving in with a newlywed couple? That doesn't sound sane. It's obvious you'll be a burden to Kevin." I was worried about that too. But both of them have accepted me. I want to honestly accept their feelings. "How could this be happening? You say something too, will you?" Until then, Charles had been silent, now staring at Chloe with a vacant look in his eyes. His gaze was powerless, his body seemed to slump. "Chloe, I want a divorce." "What? What is it with you all of a sudden?" "I can't take this life anymore." Charles, usually quiet, raised his voice, causing Chloe to step back in surprise. He stood up, confronted Chloe directly, and glared at her with intense eyes. "I can't continue with you. Not just your attitude towards me, but what you've done to Mom all this time, I could never forgive." "What the heck? You're not used to getting angry, don't start now. The problem here right now is about Evelyn living with Kevin, isn't it? Mom is going to live with Kevin. That's the end of that discussion. Now, it's about you and me. I can't live with you anymore." "Why is this suddenly coming up?" "I've been tolerating your attitude because Mom put up with it. But if Mom's moving out to live with Kevin, that's a different story. Now it's about you and me. I want to divorce you for all the suspicious acts and alleged affairs since we were young." "I haven't done anything like that." Chloe, unusually flustered, looked away, her eyes darting around. Charles was gentle, but when he got angry as a child, he was unstoppable. Probably, Chloe had never seen Charles angry. When he did get angry, he would meticulously prepare to thoroughly defeat his opponent. As expected, Charles casually pulled out a large brown envelope from his company bag and spread its contents messily on the table. It was a report from an infidelity investigation conducted years ago, proving Chloe's affair without needing to read the details. Chloe was speechless and slumped into her seat. Without another word, Charles returned to his room. I noticed the living room curtains fluttering. So, the window was open. Feeling the gentle breeze coming through the window, I wondered if our embarrassing conversation had been overheard by the neighbors and massaged my temples. "Chloe, I can't say anything about you and Charles, but I hope you two can talk it through properly." Chloe just sat there silently, not answering. Then, it came to a lawsuit because Chloe refused to divorce, but the investigation into the affair was the final blow, and the divorce was finalized. I heard rumors that Chloe didn't change her aggressive self even after the divorce, and people gradually distanced themselves from her, leading her to live lonely days. By the time the divorce was finalized, I had already been living with Kevin and the others for 6 months now. I was feeling happy every day, helping with the care of my great-grandchild. Then one day, "Grandma, Dad's here." Returning from a walk with my great-grandchild, Charles was sitting in the apartment living room with a serious expression on his face. Seeing my son's face for the first time in 6 months since I left the house, he seemed somewhat healthier. After laying down the great-grandchild I was holding to bed, I smiled at Charles. Have you been able to sleep since the divorce? Thanks to you, I've been getting about 8 hours. Charles said this with a brighter expression than I had ever seen before. That's right, my son was someone who used to show such innocent smiles. Even though he has aged and grown a beard, I couldn't help but reminisce about his youthful appearance and laugh bitterly at the comparison to his present self. So, what brings you here today? Don't tell me you want to live with us? Well, that's actually why I came. Of course, I'll contribute to the new home expenses as well. Of course. You're now able to properly manage your finances after the divorce. I've already settled things with Kevin and Mia. We're thinking of purchasing this apartment with the inheritance left by Dad, who passed away, in a way that the two of them would agree with. And from now on, I'll be able to protect you, Mom. Originally, Charles was timid by nature but never was a weak man. I'm sure it was the result of him carefully considering his future and taking action after the divorce from Chloe. I looked at my son, my grandson, Mia, and my great-grandchild in turn and closed my eyes. The image of my late husband appeared behind my eyelids. With a peaceful expression. Isn't that wonderful? It seemed like my late husband was smiling. What's so wonderful about it? You've put me through so much trouble. If you had lived a little longer, maybe I would have been happier. Thinking this, I then reconsidered. My current happiness is thanks to Kevin and Mia, who wished for my happiness. My gratitude towards these two cannot be fully expressed in words. Suddenly, my great-grandchild started crying as if a fire had been lit, and I quickly rushed to the bed and picked him up. After rocking him a few times, my great-grandchild fell completely at ease in my arms and started breathing softly in sleep. Grandma, do you think she'll make it? Let's pray. Grandma's fighting hard. Until yesterday, my mother-in-law, Selena, who was lively and well, suddenly collapsed due to a heart attack. It was my niece, Jane, who lives with Selena in our family home, that found her. In front of the ICU, we prayed desperately, but despite our prayers, Selena passed away without returning to us. Selena had 4 children, including my husband, but they arrived at the family home the morning after she passed away. Despite my suspicions about the 4 of them, we somehow managed to get through the funeral. And then, 1 week after the funeral, as life was finally returning to normal, and I had sent my 2 children off to elementary school and preschool, and was watering the flowers in the garden, the mailman came. Among a few postcards, there was one slightly thicker envelope. What could this be? The handwriting on the envelope was familiar, and to my surprise, the sender was Selena. I rushed inside the house, took a deep breath, and opened the envelope, which contained a letter and something else. Please make sure the children do not notice this letter. The letter, which started with this line, was sent through her best friend, expressing gratitude towards me, concern for the future of my children, Montague and Diamond, and also for Jane. Apart from the letter, there was another piece of paper with a map drawn on it. I hurriedly contacted Jane and headed to the location indicated on the map. I've always been helped by Selena until the end. Jane, I've made up my mind. Meadow, I'm supporting you. I had made a strong resolution. My name is Meadow. I live with my husband Frederick, my first-grade son Montague, and my 3-year-old daughter Diamond. I got married at 32, which wasn't too late, but it took a while before we could have children. I still remember how happy I was to finally be pregnant at 37, to the point of tears. With the pregnancy, I quit the company I had worked for 15 years since graduating from college. Although my colleagues were sorry to see me go, as a team leader, I was working overtime almost every day. And I couldn't imagine continuing to work while raising a child. I wanted to cherish the time with the child who had finally come to us. However, I also felt like quitting work would leave me behind in society, making it hard to make the decision. Once the kids start preschool and you have some time, you could work a little at our place. If you're family, you don't have to bow and scrape for sudden pickups, and it's more flexible. It was precisely when Selena, who ran a steakhouse, casually said these words that I was able to make up my mind to quit my job. Selena had lost her husband at a young age and raised 4 children on her own, a true matriarch through and through. Selena, doesn't this seem like a lot of food? You hit the jackpot. Eat up and work hard in the afternoon. She never sweated the small stuff. But she was more sensitive to others' feelings than anyone else. I remember how down I felt when I was struggling to get pregnant. Come on, look up. That's it. Stop by the shop before work starting tomorrow. Saying this, from the next day, she began giving me lunchboxes every day. Make sure you eat well. Being in good health is what's important. She never said it outright, but she took care to help me maintain a body more likely to conceive. My sister-in-law Wendy, sister-in-law Dream, and brother-in-law Melville all married and had children early, and by this time, Selena already had 11 grandchildren. Furthermore, she lived with Wendy, who had moved back home after a divorce, and her 3 children, while the Dream and Melville families lived nearby. Selena, who could see her 11 grandchildren anytime she wanted, must have been more than satisfied with them. Yet, she cried tears of joy for my pregnancy and childbirth. I have always had absolute trust in her, both in the past and now. 7 years have passed since I became a housewife, and with Diamond starting preschool, I decided to start working part-time at Selena's steakhouse. Selena, listen to this. Montague broke his umbrella again on his way home. While doing the dishes, I vented to Selena about my children's misadventures. I was quite upset that he had broken 2 umbrellas in just a few months, but Selena seemed unfazed by the story. He wasn't being bullied, was he? No. He said he was competing with a friend to see who could dig deeper into the ground with their umbrella. It's good to have a competitive spirit. Plus, now he knows umbrellas are not for digging, right? Laughing along with Selena, I found myself smiling too. The frustration and annoyance from yesterday cleared away. A mother should indeed have this solid and unflappable presence. Being with Selena, I kept finding aspects to admire and emulate. She was my ideal image of a mother. By the way, Selena, do you have any plans for this Sunday? Nothing planned. Everyone's so busy these days. Selena looked a bit lonely. The grandchildren she lives with and those in the neighborhood are all in middle school or older now. They're busy with club activities and hanging out with friends, leaving little time for her. Well, Montague has been saying he wants to go to a sushi restaurant. Why don't we go together? I'd be so happy to see Montague and Diamond. Thank you for always inviting me. Selena's face softened. She dotes on Montague and Diamond a lot. The kids are very fond of her, too, and ideally, I'd love to take them to visit her at the family home more often. But with my sisters-in-law living there, it's not easy to just drop by. And having her come to our place isn't feasible either, as we don't have parking. So, Frederick and I decided to invite Selena out for meals or outings about once every 2 weeks, so she could spend time with our children. Eager to sit next to their beloved grandma, the kids always scramble for the seat next to Selena. Watching them, Selena would smile warmly. Is Frederick working today, too? Yes. He's been really busy since he became a manager. I see. That's tough. Previously, Frederick would join us, but lately, his weekend work has increased, so it's been just the three of us going out with Selena. I wasn't too bothered by Frederick's absence, reasoning that work couldn't be helped and the kids weren't much trouble anymore. However, I couldn't ignore the somewhat lonely look that appeared on Selena's face. Next time, I'll make sure to invite us out on a day when Frederick isn't working. Selena looked surprised, then shook her head and smiled. Don't worry about that. I'm truly happy just to spend time with you all. Saying this, she pulled a small box from her bag. Selena smiled brightly and gently opened the box. This is my treasure box. This ring was given to me by Dad, and this necklace was my first purchase with my first paycheck. The treasure box filled with memories made me smile, too. What about this one in the bag? I pointed to a small drawstring bag. That, you can open when I say it's okay. Huh? Ehe. Selena laughed mischievously. I'll give you my treasure box, Meadow. I'm not at the age to dress up anymore. Saying that, Selena carefully closed the box and placed it in front of me. But, such important things. I want you to have them. To you, my precious daughter. Selena's words deeply touched me. I'll take good care of it. Mother-in-law. Selena smiled warmly and then gently hugged Montague, who was sitting next to her. That's not fair, only brother. Grandma, hug me later too. I'll give you a big hug once we're outside. Selena soothed Diamond, who puffed her cheeks out, with a tender look. Given how much love she showers not just on her grandchildren but also on me, her daughter-in-law, she must really cherish Frederick, her own child. Feeling a bit sad that Frederick seems unaware of the depth of his mother's love, I resolved to make sure Selena could see him the next time. However, that opportunity never came. On a holiday, I went out with the two children. Grandma will be here soon, right? We had invited Selena, but she had an appointment at the hair salon in the morning, so we arranged to meet at the lunch spot. Montague and Diamond stretched their necks, waiting eagerly for Grandma's arrival in front of the restaurant. But Selena didn't show up at the agreed time. I tried calling her several times, but she didn't answer. Being a professional, Selena always made it a point to answer the phone within 3 rings. This habit was ingrained in her, and she would instinctively answer within 3 rings even when not at her store. Yet today, she didn't pick up even after 10 rings. Knowing how reliable Selena was, if she was delayed at the hair salon, she would definitely have contacted us. What could have happened? I was getting worried. Even after waiting for 30 minutes, Selena was nowhere to be seen, and she still wasn't answering her phone. Hey, are we still waiting? I'm hungry. Me too. I want to eat now. As the children started to get cranky from hunger, I hesitated to enter the restaurant without Selena. Here, you can eat this gummy candy while we wait a bit longer for Grandma, okay? I handed out the gummies to the children and pondered. Could something have happened? Maybe I should go check her house. That's when my phone rang. Jane? The name displayed wasn't Selena's but Jane's, Wendy's youngest daughter. Hello, Jane, perfect timing. Is Grandma there? Meadow? What's wrong, Jane? I asked if Selena was at home, but over the phone, Jane sounded like she was crying, and her words were barely coming out. Grandma's collapsed. Meadow, what do we do? Jane's voice was tremulous and faint. Selena has? You can't be serious. I was at a loss for words. Jane seemed to be panicking, her sobbing audible over the phone. Snapping back to reality, I tried to calm her down. It's okay. Take a deep breath. Though I was quite shaken myself, I knew I had to stay calm as the adult, my hands trembling as I spoke. Where did Grandma collapse? In the entranceway. I'm calling an ambulance right now. Stay by her side, we're on our way. After hanging up, I immediately called for an ambulance to her house. Is something wrong with Grandma? Glancing over, I saw the children looking at me anxiously. It seems so. Let's go to Grandma's place, okay? I took the children's hands and headed for the parking lot. On the way, I stopped at a convenience store to buy hamburgers so the hungry kids could eat something in the car. Grandma likes plum. Saying so, Montague confidently added a hamburger for Selena to the basket. I'll share this chocolate with Grandma. Diamond innocently tossed the candy into the basket. Selena, wake up! For these kids, you have to pull through. I fervently hoped this. On our way to her house, Jane called to inform us that Selena was being taken to the university hospital. We rushed to the hospital. Arriving there, we found Jane sitting alone, hunched over in front of the ICU. Jane. Meadow. As soon as she lifted her face, tears streamed down Jane's cheeks. You did well on your own. It's okay now. I sat next to Jane and gently rubbed her back. After calming down a bit, Jane shared what happened when she found Selena. Jane, a 9th grader, said she was at club activities that morning. When she returned home before noon and tried to unlock the door, she found it already open. Feeling suspicious, she gently opened the door and discovered Selena collapsed. I'm sorry for calling all of a sudden. I couldn't get through to anyone else. You were the only one I could turn to, Jane said with an apologetic look. No, thank you for calling. We were supposed to have lunch with Grandma. And when she didn't show up past our meeting time and didn't answer her phone, I was really worried. But I never imagined she had collapsed. I regretted not heading to her house as soon as we couldn't get in touch. Then, a hospital staff member approached us. According to the staff, Selena had suffered a myocardial infarction and collapsed. Her condition was critical when she was brought in, and they were doing their best to treat her, but there was no guarantee she would survive. We need to contact everyone. Jane and I tried to call the relatives, but no one answered their phones. Why isn't anyone answering at a time like this? I was frustrated, especially since I couldn't even get through to Frederick. Lately, not only had he been working on weekends, but he also came home late on weekdays. He often came home slightly drunk. He said the drinking was for work or to cheer up his subordinates, but recently, it felt like he was neglecting his family. Selena wanted to see you. I got it. I'll make sure to join next time. Yet, on the morning of his day off, Frederick would say, something came up at work, and leave the house. Work or family, which is more important? This incident occurred amidst my growing frustrations with Frederick. Selena has collapsed and is in critical condition. Please contact us immediately. I sent this message, but there was no response from Frederick or his siblings. Is it normal for everyone to be this hard to reach? When I asked, Jane nodded. In our family, everyone does their own thing. It's always just Grandma and me for dinner. Is that so? I had no idea about this. At least, Selena had never mentioned it. According to Jane, her mother Wendy never took care of the house and would often disappear when the children were young. Selena had reprimanded Wendy many times. You are the mother of these 3 children. But Mom, you're better at housework and raising children than I am. Of course, I am. I raised 4 children. You'll get better if you do it every day. Selena tried to encourage Wendy to be more motherly, but Wendy continued to prioritize herself, coming and going as she pleased. Therefore, Selena, while working, tirelessly looked after Jane and her siblings with a smile. However, having grown up with such a mother, Jane's siblings now, apart from Jane. Do not feel grateful towards Selena and leave the household responsibilities to her, living as they please. Now that I think about it, Selena always talked about Jane. I suddenly remembered. Jane's hamburgers are the best in the world, or when I started having trouble threading needles because of my farsightedness. Jane bought me a needle threader. Grandma always talked about Jane with a smile. Hearing my words, tears once again welled up in Jane's eyes. Will Grandma make it? Let's pray. Grandma's fighting. But despite our hopes, Selena passed away, leaving us behind. Looking at Selena lying on the bed, she seemed to be just sleeping with her usual gentle expression. Grandma, we bought you a hamburger. Let's eat chocolate together. The children, mistaking her for just sleeping, spoke to Selena. Grandma won't wake up anymore. She's gone to heaven. Where's heaven? Is it a nice place? It's a very nice place. Grandma must be happy meeting Grandpa there. Indeed, Selena must have finally met her husband whom she longed to see. I hoped they would spend their time together happily. With that thought, I couldn't find myself crying. We received explanations from the hospital about what would happen next and headed to the family home to prepare for the funeral. Even though it was already evening, nobody was at the family home. The kitchen was set up for dinner. It must be cream stew for tonight. The amount prepared was for a family of 5. Despite not knowing when everyone would return or if they would eat, Selena always prepared meals for the whole family. Till the end, I was deeply moved by Selena's kindness and greatness. Colleagues from Selena's steakhouse also came to the family home to help. We want to help in any way we can for Selena, they said, helping with the funeral preparations. While sharing memories of Selena, we brainstormed and proceeded with the preparations. Jane was the only one familiar with the house. But there were things even she, still a high school student, didn't know, making the preparations challenging. Wendy, whom we thought would return eventually, never came back, and there was no contact with any of the siblings-in-law. Although there was much to consider, my thoughts were only on Selena, and I took the initiative to act. Frederick and his siblings arrived at the family home the next morning. What have you been doing all this time? I gave Frederick a cold look. There was trouble at work. I was utterly dismayed that Frederick, even after his own mother passed away, still used work as an excuse. And it wasn't just him. From Wendy and the other siblings-in-law, there was no word of thanks for anything said about Selena or for the funeral preparations. Then, see you at the funeral. Call us anytime if you need anything. Sensing the odd atmosphere, the colleagues quietly left. During the funeral, Jane and I, despite our grief, fulfilled our duties as family members. But Selena's own children seemed indifferent and did not make any effort to participate. Thinking about these 4 disturbed my peace of mind. I focused on my last moments with Selena. A week after the funeral ended. As life slowly returned to normal and I had sent the 2 kids off to elementary school and preschool, I was watering the garden when the mailman arrived. Among a few postcards, there was one slightly thicker envelope. What could this be? The handwriting on the envelope was familiar, and surprisingly, the sender was Selena. I quickly went inside the house, took a deep breath, and opened the envelope, which contained a letter and something else. Please make sure the children do not notice this letter. The letter, starting with this line, was sent through her best friend, expressing gratitude towards me and concern for the future of Montague, Diamond, and Jane. Apart from the letter, there was another piece of paper with a map drawn on it. I hurriedly contacted Jane and headed to the location indicated on the map. I've been helped by Selena until the end. Jane, I've made up my mind. Meadow, I'm supporting you. I had made a strong resolution. A month later, we were called by a lawyer to the family home. Besides us, the Wendy family, Dream family, and Melville family were also gathered. It turned out that Selena had prepared a will during her lifetime and left it with the lawyer. In the will given by the lawyer, Wendy, Frederick, Dream, Melville, divide everything equally among the four of you. It was written. I thought I had no part in this, so I should go upstairs and take care of the children. Just as I was about to stand up, an unbelievable phrase caught my ear. She was a noisy old woman, but at least it was good she left us an inheritance. The voice belonged to Frederick. Really, it was worth putting up with everything. The four of them mocked Selena's memory. At that moment, my anger exploded. I no longer want anything to do with any of you. And that includes you. With that, I slammed a completed divorce application form on the table. The room fell silent. What's this all of a sudden? You've been living because of what I do, you know. Frederick glared at me sharply, but I glared back without backing down. The late nights and weekends weren't for work, but for your affairs, right? I have the evidence. I then spread out a private investigator's report on the table. In fact, the letter from Selena included a key to a coin locker located at the place marked on the map. When Jane and I opened the locker, we found a report on Frederick's affair. Selena must have felt something was off with Frederick's recent work on weekends. This must be a mother's intuition. Selena had secretly hired a detective agency to gather evidence of Frederick's infidelity. I was completely unaware of the affair, so I was truly amazed by Selena's actions. I don't want a share of the inheritance or compensation from the divorce trial. Just sign the divorce papers now. And never involve yourself with me or the children again. I couldn't bear to be with someone who disregards their family any longer. I spoke with increased fervor. Frederick's expression twisted for a moment, but then he smirked. Fine by me. I'll get to use Mom's inheritance all by myself. Works out better for me. He then filled out the divorce application without hesitation. Since the lawyer is here, it's better to get that promise in writing. Jane's voice came from the side. Right. Saying you don't want compensation from the divorce trial, then coming back crying later is exactly what I'd expect. That's my girl. Wendy praised Jane. Jane was actually advising me out of concern. Thinking this, I didn't retort but decided to have the lawyer draft a document outlining the divorce terms as Jane suggested. The discussion about the divorce was over, and I left the family home with the children. As I was leaving, I asked, the things I received from my mother-in-law during her lifetime aren't considered part of the inheritance, right? May I keep them as keepsakes? Those are just trinkets in a jewelry box, right? Please, feel free to take them. The four siblings, including Wendy, mocked Selena and seemed preoccupied with the inheritance, quickly wanting to dismiss me and the children, outsiders to them. After that, we headed straight to my parents' home. Welcome back. We've put your things in your room. I had informed my parents about Frederick's affair and my decision to divorce him as soon as I found out. Considering the children, I thought about moving within their current school district despite being jobless. But my family lived in a different state. Children adapt quickly, you know. Encouraged by my father's words, I decided to temporarily return to my parents' home. It was immediately clear that this was the right decision. Visits to my parents' home were rare, maybe once a year. Though initially tense about living with my parents, the children quickly grew fond of them. Grandpa, let's play catch. Montague, unlike with Frederick, who rarely spent time with him, started playing catch with my dad, who showed him affection. Grandma, what's this flower? Diamond, who had been missing Selena, began to enjoy the garden flowers with my mom, knowledgeable about plants. They gradually adjusted to their new schools, and we started a modest yet peaceful life. About 3 months later, I received a call from Frederick. Did you deceive us? He seemed to be talking about the jewelry box I had received from Selena before she passed. I heard from Wendy. There were expensive jewels inside that box. In fact, besides the evidence of the affair, there was another letter in the coin locker. That letter mentioned the jewelry box Selena gave me before her passing. Selena said, "It's okay. When I was told I could open the drawstring bag I had been given permission to open. It contained a gemstone called alexandrite, and the value of the gemstone was about $500,000. This gem allowed me to decisively move forward with the divorce from Selena." Apparently, Wendy had eavesdropped on a conversation between me and Jane, discovering the existence of the gem. That's why I asked clearly, didn't I? If it was okay to keep what mother-in-law gave me before she passed. That's sneaky. Even over the phone, I could tell Frederick was furious. It wasn't surprising, considering they were now burdened with dividing not just the inheritance, but also the debt among themselves. I had been completely unaware of the debt. Later, Jane told me over the phone that Selena had taken a $500,000 loan 5 years ago for renovations to her shop. If she hadn't purchased the jewel for me, she wouldn't have needed to take on such a massive debt. But this was a testament to Selena's kindness. Grandma always appreciated how kind you were to her, Meadow. Since her own sons and daughter were so distant, she was even happier that you became part of the family. Selena had wanted to express her gratitude to me, and she intended to work off the $500,000 debt herself. If Frederick and his siblings had been kinder to Selena, perhaps she wouldn't have felt the need to leave them with such a burden. They had truly brought this upon themselves. I hoped they would reflect deeply on their actions. After the divorce, Frederick and his siblings tried to contact me several times. But thanks to the agreement we made during the divorce, I managed to fend them off. Not only Frederick, but other brothers contacted me. Next time you contact me, I will consult the police. After I told them that, all contact from them suddenly stopped. According to Jane, the siblings finally realized they needed to sort out their issues on their own. Now, they're embroiled in a dispute over whether to sell the family home. Wendy wants to continue living there rent-free, while Frederick and the others want to sell it to alleviate some of the debt. The 4 of them seemed to get along well when they were making fun of Frederick. But in the end, all 4 of them can only think about themselves. Despite everything, I felt truly relieved to have distanced myself from such people. The only person I've kept in touch with is Jane. She moved for university and, coincidentally, started living alone near my parents' home. Montague, I'll help you with your homework. Yay! I love Sister Jane because she's so kind. Jane, with her kind heart, is now studying to become a nurse, aiming to help people just like her grandmother did. Although she can't rely on her mother Wendy, Jane has been working hard, earning a scholarship for tuition exemption and covering her living expenses with part-time jobs and scholarships. When Jane decided on her university, I offered to sell the gem to help with her expenses, but she refused. I want to show Grandma that I can live my life well, with a respectable job on my own strength. Hearing Jane's determination, I decided to quietly support her in her journey. Jane, with her kindness and strong will. She is sure to become a wonderful woman like Selena. When that time comes, I plan to give her a portion of the money from selling the gemstone. After all, Jane was the only grandchild who stayed by Selena's side throughout. And now, I'm also looking for work, trying not to be outdone by Jane. I'm considering starting my own business, something that can be balanced with parenting, and my plans are gradually taking shape. This is all thanks to the jewelry box that Selena left behind. I intend to use some of the initial funds for startup costs, but ultimately want to support my children with the money I earn myself. I want to go to Finland to see the aurora. Montague's eyes sparkle as he solves his homework with a world map drawn on it. Recently, he's been very fond of the globe he received as a gift, eagerly sharing his knowledge about the countries of the world. I want to meet Santa Claus. I'd prefer somewhere warm, like Hawaii. Everyone dreams of their own desired destinations. That's it. I'll use the money Selena left behind to take the children and Jane to the places they want to visit. Surely, it will be an enriching experience that broadens their horizons. Just imagining it fills me with excitement. Selena, thanks to you, we can spend our days with smiles on our faces. Please continue to watch over us. Too bad. I'll give you as much money for compensation as you want, you poor thing. You know that Mary is the one who's the CEO, right? I'm Mary. I've been married to my husband David for 2 years. We both work and are so busy that we hardly have time to talk except on weekends, but our relationship is strong, and we go on an overseas trip together once a year. When we got married, we decided to build a new house and splurged on a mansion. I'm satisfied with our current life. I have a good friend from high school named Emma, and we occasionally go out for lunch together. Emma has high standards for men and isn't married yet, but she has a strong desire to marry. Especially, she won't compromise on finding someone with a high income. Hey, can I come over to your house sometime? And right now, I'm having lunch with my friend Emma for the first time in a while. We've both been busy and haven't been able to meet often, but we've kept in touch through calls and messages. Today, our schedules aligned. Emma and I have been close friends since high school, sharing everything about each other. Both the good times and the hard times, they all have become fond memories. Since marrying my husband 2 years ago and becoming busier at work, I've had less time to see Emma. My husband usually has weekends off, but due to the nature of his sales job, working on holidays isn't unusual. He was busy with work, and I was figuring out how to spend my free time alone when Emma contacted me, leading to this moment. Sure, my place is close by. How about we have tea at my house after this? Really? I'd love to. After getting married, my husband and I built a house, but since I usually met Emma outside, this was the first time I invited her over. After finishing lunch, we headed to my house. Upon arrival, Emma was amazed. Wow, this place is a mansion. Amazing! When we built our house, we didn't hold back because it was a once-in-a-lifetime purchase, resulting in a house larger than the average family home. Being new, the interior was still pristine, and Emma seemed to love it. We splurged a bit. It's our dream house, after all. It's so spacious and beautiful. Must have cost a fortune? It was a big purchase, but it's our home. Cost us about $1 million. Emma was shocked at that. $1 million? Is David's salary that high? Emma has always had high standards for men, particularly regarding income. Her question seemed to stem from those values. David's salary? Well, it's pretty good for his age, I guess. I tried to answer without giving specifics, to avoid any offense. I see. I didn't realize at the time, but this vague response was a sign of things to come. Unaware of Emma sneering behind my back, I went on to prepare the tea in the living room. Hey, since I'm here, can I stay until David comes home so I can say hi? Emma asked with a smile, teacup in hand. Seeing no reason to refuse, I happily agreed. Great. Where's the bathroom? This way. I showed Emma to the bathroom and waited for her in the living room. In the meantime, I messaged my husband that Emma was visiting and suggested we have dinner together. Wait, that's my bag. I got lost coming out of the bathroom. Ended up touring the house and found this. This brand's really expensive, right? Mind if I borrow it for a while? It wasn't that far from the bathroom to the living room. She probably wanted to see the house, but the bag Emma had was supposed to be in my bedroom. Realizing she had entered my bedroom without permission was unsettling. But I didn't make a fuss and reluctantly agreed to lend her the bag. Okay, but you must return it. It's a gift from my husband. Of course, don't worry, I will. Later, feeling a bit uneasy, I checked the bedroom while I was supposed to go to the bathroom. Nothing seemed ransacked, but it looked like the closet had been rummaged through, with bags and shoes slightly scattered. I decided to mention it to Emma when I returned to the living room. Emma, you went into the bedroom, right? Seems like you went through the closet too. I'd rather you didn't do that. When I looked Emma in the eye and spoke, her eyebrows twitched momentarily. You're right. Sorry. Won't do it again. Thanks, I appreciate it. While we were talking, my husband came home. I had told him in advance that Emma was visiting, so perhaps out of consideration, he brought home a cake. I'm home. Welcome back. Thanks for the cake. This is my friend Emma. I mentioned her in a message. How about the three of us have dinner together? Nice to meet you, Emma. Mary always speaks highly of you. Of course, I'd love to. Nice to meet you too. I'm sorry I couldn't attend your wedding, but I'm happy to meet you like this. Emma had been ill and couldn't attend our wedding, so this was her first meeting with my husband. After dinner, we enjoyed the cake my husband had bought with some tea. Emma's friendly nature meant she quickly got along with my husband, and the evening ended on a high note. About a month later, I started noticing changes in my husband. He would quickly look away during conversations and spent more time on his phone. He even started taking it to the bathroom and shower. It was an obvious change. I considered checking his phone at one point, but decided against it, feeling there wouldn't be anything pleasing to find. However, his behavior was typical of someone hiding something, and I couldn't help but suspect him. Our conversations at home became increasingly rare. Furthermore, his weekend work increased, and we began living like ships passing in the night. One day, I came home to find divorce papers on the table. Though I had anticipated it, seeing the filled-out papers still shook me. I immediately called my husband. I just got home and saw the table. What's this about? It means what it says. I want a divorce. I knew something was off, but tell me why. I've fallen in love with someone else. Are you saying you've been cheating? It's not cheating. I've seriously fallen for her. Though it might seem like cheating to you. How is it not cheating? Does she know you're married? She knows, but... My husband hesitated, making it clear we needed a face-to-face conversation. As I was about to speak. Hello, Mary? It's me. A familiar voice replaced my husband's. Emma? Yes. I'm dating David. And we want to get married. Hearing this, I felt despair. My heart raced, and I felt incredibly upset. What do you mean, get married? David is my husband. I fell for him the moment I met him at your house. We exchanged contacts and started talking, and things escalated. What do you mean escalated? What are you thinking? Anger, emptiness, and sadness overwhelmed me, leaving me speechless. I know it's bad. But what can we do? We were meant to be. I'm grateful to you for bringing us together. Emma said without a hint of remorse, even though she claimed to feel bad. Her voice, instead, sounded defiant. I could never forgive the betrayal of my husband and a friend I had been close with since our student days. You don't really feel bad, do you? Let me speak to my husband instead. David said there's nothing left to talk about. Can you just sign the divorce papers and submit them as soon as possible? How can I agree to anything without a proper conversation? Tell him to come home at once. What? That's impossible. He's living with me now. There's nothing to talk about, right? You just need to sign the divorce papers. I felt nothing but suspicion and irritation towards Emma, who answered nonchalantly as if she either wanted to provoke me or bore some grudge against me. Just put my husband on the phone. My loud demand didn't faze Emma, who just scoffed and replied mockingly. Whatever you say, it's not going to happen. Bye. Holding the phone after she unilaterally ended the call, I stood there dumbfounded for a while. The sleepless nights continued, and my husband didn't come back during that time. The divorce papers left on the living room table seemed to be waiting for my signature. Emma kept sending me multiple photos of her and my husband together, as if to flaunt their close relationship. My mental health deteriorated to the point where it began to affect my job. So I decided it was time to seriously consider divorce and consulted a lawyer. I had a lawyer acquaintance whom I decided to consult. After setting up an appointment, I met with the lawyer and explained my situation. It must have been tough. My lawyer listened attentively to my story. What would you like to do? My lawyer asked, and to my surprise, my answer came more easily than I thought. I want a divorce. But I want them to be properly punished. That's understandable. Let's make sure to claim compensation. We can't let the evidence they've been so kind to send us go to waste. Right. I'll claim compensation from my husband and Emma and make a clean break. Thank you for your help. Leave it to me. And, although it might be unnecessary to say, try to eat well and get enough sleep to take care of your health. Thank you. After talking with the lawyer, I decided to take the necessary steps to move on. They say time heals all wounds, and I'm starting to look forward a bit more each day. Recently, I've been able to eat meals I couldn't before and sleep without an issue. The only thing I'm losing is my husband. I have nothing else to lose or worry about. Having gone through this, I'm sure something good is waiting for me next. This thought gave me some energy. And then a few days later, Emma contacted me again. Hey, are you still clinging to the past? I want you to hurry up and get the divorce. Completely unapologetic. What's wrong with you? I'm preparing for the divorce, so tell that to my husband. That's a lie, right? You think David is coming back, don't you? I know what you're clinging to. It's David's income, isn't it? Income? Yeah, he's the CEO with an annual revenue of $500 billion. You were hiding that from me because you knew this would happen if I got involved, didn't you? My husband is the CEO with an annual revenue of $500 billion? Don't pretend you didn't know. That's why you could afford such a mansion. Did he tell you that? Yes, he told me everything. So hurry up and leave that house. It's going to be mine now. Too bad David won't be coming back. I'll give you as much compensation as you want, you poor thing. After saying that unilaterally, Emma hung up the phone. Now I understood why Emma targeted my husband. This call from Emma completely cooled off my feelings for my husband, and I started to think about life after divorce. From the next day on, I felt much clearer in my mind. In a way, I might have Emma to thank for that. The couple photos she sent today only disgust me now. Everything she sent was shared with my lawyer. After recovering from my illness and solving work problems, my usual routine finally returned. All that was left was to settle things with my husband and Emma. My lawyer had sent them the documents on my behalf. Now, we just had to wait for their response. A few days later, a reaction came swiftly. Hey! What were you thinking sending documents to my company? Emma was furious, her anger echoing. So, you were harassing me without being prepared for the consequences? Just sharing a bit of mine and David's happiness with you. It wasn't harassment. No, it definitely counts as harassment. Please, talk to my lawyer from now on. Goodbye. Hey! I hung up the phone right there. I felt a sense of relief knowing she was sufficiently rattled. Emma's calls continued, but I never picked up again. Similarly, my husband tried calling, and when he realized I wasn't answering, he resorted to messaging, complaining about documents sent to his parents' house, which exposed the affair and led to their condemnation. His messages were selfish and told me to tell his parents that it was all a lie. My disdain for my husband only grew. Returning home, having dinner, bathing, and going to the bedroom, I noticed something was off. Opening the closet, I saw that some of my bags and accessories were missing. Specifically the branded ones. I could think of only one suspect. "You've got to be kidding, she went as far as to steal?" I immediately informed my lawyer, who said we would need evidence to pursue this. Evidence. That's when I remembered installing security cameras around the house as a security measure when we built it. I had forgotten about them since I never had to use them before. Checking one of the cameras, I found it had recorded everything clearly. I reviewed footage from all the cameras in the house and, to my astonishment, I saw Emma stealing my branded items over several days while I was away. I was horrified. To think I was friends with such a person filled me with fear. The next day, I took the video data to my lawyer, who was also appalled. "This person is incredible in a way, boldly stealing from someone else's home. This will certainly serve as evidence. But this will be a separate case from the divorce, is that okay? It's a criminal matter." "Yes, please proceed with everything you have," I said, smiling eerily calm. After all that had happened, why should I hold back? It was time for her to take responsibility for her actions. "Understood. But I do recommend changing your locks." Taking my lawyer's advice to heart, I changed the locks that very day. After that, I received a barrage of calls from both my husband and Emma, which I completely ignored. They even came to my house directly, but I didn't hesitate to call the police. Eventually, the calls from my husband and Emma stopped. A few days later, my lawyer mentioned that they wanted to negotiate a settlement. Asked what I wanted to do, I agreed to a discussion, provided my lawyer was present. I was busy and wanted to settle this quickly. The lawyer arranged the date. And on the day, we met in a conference room at the lawyer's office. Emma and my husband burst into the room, opening the door aggressively. "Finally, we meet, you coward." "Stop it, Emma. It's because she's been running away. Because of you, our wedding's been postponed." Emma was ready to throw something at me, anger radiating from her as she yelled. My husband desperately tried to calm her down. Seeing them after so long, I felt pathetic for having to deal with such people. "Please calm down. If any violence or abusive language is detected, we will immediately call the police, understood?" The lawyer managed to settle them down for a moment, and Emma and my husband finally took their seats. With everyone ready, the discussion began. "David, you wish for a divorce, correct?" "We agree to the divorce. However, considering your relationship began as an affair, we will be seeking compensation. Do you have any objections?" "If it means getting a divorce, fine by me. But after paying the compensation, I want nothing to do with you ever again." "Mary, is that acceptable to you?" "Of course. I have no interest in continuing any relationship with him either," I stated calmly, noticing my husband's slight disturbance. But I didn't care about that anymore. Next, regarding the amount of compensation. When the lawyer started to talk about the compensation amount, Emma joined the conversation. "I said any amount is fine. We have a ton of money anyway." Emma crossed her arms and spoke arrogantly. Hearing this, the lawyer adjusted his glasses. "A ton of money, you say?" "Yes." "Aren't you a lawyer? Didn't you check? David is the CEO of a company with annual sales of $500 billion. Compensation for an affair is not a problem at all. I'll even give you a fair share of the property. Your salary must barely cover your living expenses." Emma said this confidently, laughing, and the lawyer, unable to hold back, burst into laughter. Emma looked displeased at the sight. "What's so funny? Are you mocking me?" Emma said, shaken, to the lawyer who was drying his tears with a handkerchief, trying to compose himself. My apologies. I see it now. It all makes sense. The lawyer put down his handkerchief, looked at Emma, and smiled. The CEO is Mary, you know? David is just an ordinary employee there. What? Emma looked puzzled for a moment, but soon crossed her arms and sneered. So the lawyer hired by a fool is also a fool. Get real. Did Mary lie to you saying she was the CEO? How sad. I should be the one saying that you. Did you verify your side of the story? The lawyer turned to David, who looked pale. Seeing this, Emma, perhaps feeling anxious, started to press David. You said you were the CEO of a company with annual sales of $500 billion, right? You weren't lying, were you? David said nothing. Just looked down, pale. Seeing this, Emma gradually turned pale as well. Answer me. You weren't lying, right? You said you were the CEO of a company with annual sales of $500 billion? Emma shook her David's shoulder, but he just muttered. Sorry. This apology plunged Emma into despair. Emma, trembling, turned to face me and stood up, slamming the desk. That's a lie, right? There's no way you're the CEO. I was the closest to you, so there's no way I wouldn't know. Emma, still standing, turned her gaze from David to me and now started accusing me. So I decided to tell her the truth. Just because we're best friends doesn't mean we share everything. Especially not our incomes. And it's precisely because I was close that I knew how greedy you were with money. That's why I never intended to tell you. I looked straight at Emma, without averting my eyes, and told her this. Emma, unable to hide her shock, sat down on the spot. Then, that house is… Of course, it's in my name. So the one leaving is my husband, no, David. He's not going to be my husband anymore. Emma fell silent at those words. Now that everything is clear, we will claim a reasonable amount of compensation. My lawyer said, but neither David nor Emma seemed to hear, both remaining silent. Next, regarding the theft. The lawyer continued unemotionally, despite the couple's demeanor. It was quite satisfying to listen to. At the mention of theft, the couple finally looked up. Theft? Yes. You stole several brand items from Mary when she wasn't home, didn't you? Confronted about the theft, Emma bit her lower lip. David, apparently unaware of the incident, looked surprised. Hey! What's this theft about? It wasn't me. I don't know anything. Emma desperately pretended not to know, but then the lawyer presented photos from the surveillance footage. What's this? A footage from the surveillance camera. A surveillance camera? Emma seemed to be unaware of the surveillance cameras. Had she known, she wouldn't have dared to steal so boldly. The husband covered his face with his hands and sighed. Our house is equipped with surveillance cameras. We installed them for security, since we bought quite a nice house. Why didn't you say that sooner? Who would think you'd break in to steal? Plus, it means you stole the keys from me. I thought I had lost them. I wanted those brand items. You wouldn't buy them for me. So the two started arguing. Both the lawyer and I sighed in disbelief. Please save your quarrels for later. As for the theft, we plan to file a police report. That concludes our discussion. Hearing the word police, Emma visibly panicked. Police is such an exaggeration. I just borrowed something from a friend. You can't possibly file a police report, right? I didn't lend it, and I no longer consider you a friend. I will file a report. After all, it was stolen. No! I'll compensate. Just don't call the police. Are you going to compensate? The brand items you stole are worth a considerable amount, you know. Are you sure you can cover that? Plus, there's also the compensation. When I said this, Emma, thinking she had found a way out, turned to David. Hey, even if you're not the CEO, you're still working, so you can pay, right? We're going to be fine, right? David just looked down and remained silent at Emma's words. He doesn't have the ability to pay. After all, he's been absent without contacting the company, so he's going to be fired. What? I told you he worked at my company. Ever since he started having an affair with you, his unexcused absences increased. I've been notified. There's no way we could keep such an employee, right? But there's still the division of assets. With that division of assets won't be possible. Why not? The savings accumulated as a married couple should be part of the division of assets. Aren't you a lawyer? Don't you know that? Have you not heard anything from David? You said he told you everything, yet you missed the important parts. Then, the lawyer presented a document. As per the prenuptial agreement, if the marriage doesn't last 3 years, neither party can claim the other's assets. Since they're currently in the 2nd year of marriage, this applies. Emma trembled as she took the document. Like this piece of paper has any power. That is a notarized document, so it has legal force. However, it only means no division of assets. David's assets remain. Emma managed a bitter smile at this. Well, if that's the case, we're fine. David, you have savings, right? So, we're okay, right? The face of Emma clinging to hope was no longer that of the friend I knew. There's none. Because you kept on spending. The savings are gone. At David's words, Emma sat down on the floor. I couldn't feel sorry for her at all. This was her own doing. The discussion is over, so please submit the divorce papers promptly, and David, please pack your things and leave the house. That's all. It was unclear whether the lawyer's words were heard, but the lawyer and I left the room, leaving the sitting couple behind. I left the rest to the lawyer and went home. The divorce was finalized smoothly. With the lawyer present, David packed his belongings and left the house. I received a few messages from David, but I blocked him completely. I cut off all contact with David and Emma. After being fired from the company and losing his savings, David ended up moving into Emma's place, but with the theft incident, Emma also got fired. They both desperately looked for work but only managed to find day-pay part-time jobs. Despite receiving their salary on the same day, Emma, who is bad at saving, continued to spend and ended up being evicted for failing to pay rent. This incident became known to their relatives, and both were disowned by their parents, unable to return to their parents' house. They now live in a very old, inconvenient apartment while working part-time jobs to pay compensation. I heard from a classmate living nearby that they are occasionally seen at a local spa, looking completely different from before, with worn-out clothes and hair. As for me, work is going well, and I've joined a tennis club as a new hobby. I'm enjoying working on myself while getting some exercise. 6 months later after this incident, I went on a solo trip abroad, where I met a wonderful man, and we are currently dating. This past event has become an unforgettable part of my history, but thinking that it led to the person I am today, I might feel that I made the right choice and I am now very happy with my life. I got pregnant. Don't come back home. What? Was I not clear? I'm having a baby with Johnny. No. No way. Pearl, it's your fault. You neglected your husband under the guise of accompanying your mother, so you got what you deserved. Mila said this with a triumphant look. But I, without any disturbance, took the message "don't come back" quite literally. Really? I'd be delighted to. Johnny and Mila were dumbstruck by my unexpected reaction. Pearl. What are you saying? Aren't you angry that I cheated? Well, I was surprised at first, but not angry. Besides, I have a new home now. New home? What's that about? Yes, I have somewhere else to go. I don't need to bother with Johnny, whom I can't trust anymore. Mila can have him. I muttered that to myself. And these two were about to face an incredible disaster. I am Pearl, a 43-year-old working mother in construction. I have had a best friend from childhood, Mila. We've been hanging out since we were little. But in middle school, we became like delinquent friends due to our rebellious natures. That continued until high school graduation, but as we grew up, our lives took completely different paths. I have always hated studying, so instead I worked on self-improvement in my 20s, such as earning certifications. My efforts paid off, and my career got on the right track in my 30s. On the other hand, Mila spent her 20s and 30s partying, believing it is a waste not to. Now past 40, both unmarried. Mila didn't seem too concerned. But I, raised by a single mother after losing my father young, wanted to get married and repay my mother's upbringing. At work, most men close to my age were married. I casually asked my boss if he knew any eligible men. He introduced me to a single man close to my age. That's how I met Johnny. He was 2 years older than me, a construction company president. Serious and dignified. Johnny, who inherited the company from his parents, was work-focused like me. Busy with work and acquiring certifications, he hadn't been much interested in marriage. We clicked over having a lot in common, so we started dating. Within a year, we promised to marry. I told Mila the news. Really? That's great, Pearl. Congratulations. Thanks. Sorry I'm getting married before you. Don't worry about it. Just be happy. Mila seemed genuinely happy for me. Thank you. You must come to the wedding. Sure. I'll look forward to it. After informing Mila, all that was left was preparing for the wedding. Tomorrow, I'm visiting Johnny's family home for the first time. I was in a flutter of excitement. But I didn't know that the happiness would end in a blink of an eye. The next morning, I was getting ready with enthusiasm. What would Johnny's house be like? Though it's his family home, his parents have passed away. It's where Johnny now lives alone. I've always wanted to see his house. But he never invited me. It's quite far from my house, near the foot of a mountain. I planned to drive there, but Johnny offered to pick me up as the house was hard to find. Johnny said shyly while driving. Well, it's quite rural, so don't be shocked. No, I prefer quiet places to busy ones. Is it peaceful countryside? I'm really excited. I tried to lighten the mood, however. Johnny looked hesitant. It seemed like he wanted to imply don't expect too much. But to me, it's where my beloved one lives. The thought of seeing that was exciting. We drove over an hour after entering the neighboring town. We entered a dark bamboo grove, far from a peaceful pastoral scene. The car stopped in a place that felt like a creepy, abandoned area. We're here. This is my house, Johnny said, and where he dropped me off was a garage surrounded by debris. In front of me was an old house, probably over 100 years old. So this is your... Yes, this is my house. It's quite old, but it's well built, Johnny replied. I stood gaping, looking around every corner of the house. The property was large, but I naively thought that after marriage he would move out. However, Johnny's next words shocked me. Well, come on in. This is the house we'll live in together forever, so don't be shy. What? Living in this house forever after marriage? I asked Johnny, feeling faint. Are we going to live here? It's nearly 2 hours by car from my office. Pearl, you can quit your job after we're married. My earnings are enough for us to live on. I was stunned by Johnny's unexpected words. We had discussed our jobs, but he never mentioned wanting me to quit after marriage. Why? I told you I love my job. Why decide I should quit without discussing it with me? Even when I questioned him, Johnny looked puzzled and answered. Isn't it common sense for a woman to become a housewife after marrying a well-off husband? My mother did the same. I thought we had a mutual understanding without saying. I stood there, dumbfounded. I hadn't expected such an old-fashioned mindset in this day and age. From here, not only my company, but also my mother's house was far away. I currently live with my mother, and moving so far would be inconvenient. I was planning to discuss these things, but my mind went blank and I couldn't find the words. The house, indeed old and sturdy, had crumbling walls in places, and the floors creaked. The shower and toilet were outdated, and with few rooms, it would be inconvenient if we had children. Could I really live in this house forever? Seeing my anxious face, Johnny tried to calm me. Don't worry. It might take some getting used to at first, but the charm of an old, antique house is great. You'll find it comfortable soon. No, that's not the issue. I wanted to say, but couldn't. For now, I decided not to say anything and asked him to take me home before it gets too late. You should stay over, it's far. Johnny casually said, but I was not in the mood to stay. That night, I lay in bed early and thought. Right, we might start in Johnny's family home, but we can move eventually. I've been working all this time and have some savings. Surely Johnny can afford to build a new home. I decided to discuss this with him next time. On my next day off, I talked to Johnny about moving into a new house. But he didn't seem keen on the idea. Why? It's a waste to move when we already have a house. Johnny said, already set on living in his own home. Am I being selfish for caring about convenience to my workplace and family home? I felt a rising irritation. Yet, I didn't dislike Johnny, and we got married as planned. The wedding was grand, befitting a construction company owner. Mila attended, of course. Flashy and youthful-looking Mila stood out, attracting male attention. Even Johnny the groom. That beautiful woman is Pearl's friend? He asked. I felt a twinge of jealousy, despite being the bride. The wedding ended without a hitch, and our married life began. Johnny lived leisurely in his familiar home. I resigned from my job and became a housewife, but felt somewhat uneasy. So, I hatched a plan. Then one day, I received a call from the hospital where my mother was a patient. She had suddenly fallen ill and was hospitalized. I rushed to the hospital and entered the room where my mother is in. Mom, are you okay? Pearl, sorry for worrying you. My mother replied, looking very unwell. According to the doctor, her condition wasn't good, and she needed a long-term hospital stay. I returned home to take care of my mother for a while. Then, I packed my things and told Johnny that I'd be away for some time to accompany my mother. But Johnny didn't seem too concerned about her. Ah, I see. Well, take your time, he said casually. I frowned at Johnny's reaction. It sounded as if I was going out for fun, despite me saying I was attending to my seriously ill mother. Yet, Johnny looked displeased at my expression. Huh? What's with that face? Did I say something wrong? No, it's nothing, I replied. Come to think of it, Johnny was raised in a wealthy environment. Expecting him to understand was perhaps too much. So, I left without saying more and went back to the hospital. 3 months have almost passed since my mother was hospitalized. Her condition remains the same, requiring my constant attendance. But what bothers me is Johnny hasn't visited even once. Is he still holding a grudge because I frowned at his words? If so, that's rather childish. Lying in her bed, my mother looked at me worriedly. Pearl, is Johnny all right? Don't worry about me, why don't you go back home? It's okay, Mom. I do go home occasionally. I reassured her, not wanting to worry her further, but truthfully, I felt anxious. For the first month, I did check on the house. But Johnny was always in a bad mood and hardly spoke to me. I would just finish the housework and return to the hospital. Gradually, I started feeling like Johnny was managing on his own, and I wasn't needed. Alone at night, as my mother slept, I wondered. Is this how things should be? Months passed with me lost in these thoughts, when I received a call. It was Mila. Hello? Pearl, it's been a while. Just thought of you and called. Mila, really long time. How have you been? Her voice uplifted my spirits. But something in Mila's reply seemed hesitant. Yeah. I'm fine. Oh, okay. I felt the conversation turn awkward, beginning to feel unsure of what to talk about next. Then, Mila broached a new topic. Hey, when are you coming back home next? What? I hadn't told Mila I was staying away to be with my mother. Her question took me by surprise. But since she reached out after so long, I recovered myself and asked her back. What's up, Mila? Did you call for something specific? No, nothing. Just wanted to hear your voice. As Mila spoke. Hey, Mila! A familiar male voice called out in the background. Mila gasped. Oh. And hurriedly ended the call. That voice. Could it be? A chill ran down my spine. It's been over 3 months since I stopped returning home. A bad feeling crept over me, and I decided to go home the next day. And the next day. After the morning rounds at the hospital, I hurried to my house. It was Sunday, so Johnny should be home. When I arrived, a bright red sports car occupied my usual parking space in the garage. That car seemed familiar. Entering the house, I saw stylish high heels in the entrance. I was right about my suspicion. Johnny! Are you here? I shouted from the entrance, and Johnny emerged, looking surprised. Pearl! Why are you back suddenly? You should have told me you were coming. Why? These shoes in the car in the garage, they're Mila's, aren't they? Yeah, Mila just happened to stop by. Johnny stammered, clearly flustered. Then, Mila appeared, dressed in a baggy overalls dress. Idiot! Don't come out! Johnny scolded her, but Mila didn't seem to care. Why? It's not like it's a secret. We had to talk about it eventually, she said defiantly. Mila stood there boldly, not showing any remorse. Her outfit was unusually simple for her, a long dress covering her ankles. It looked almost like a maternity dress. As I pondered, Mila revealed a shocking truth. I got pregnant. Don't come back home. What? Did you not hear me? I'm pregnant with Johnny's baby, she exclaimed. No way, really? Standing aside, Mila blurted out while Johnny, with a sigh, just great, kept his gaze downcast. Perhaps Johnny wished to have this conversation in a more composed state. Pearl, it's your fault. You were neglecting your husband under the guise of accompanying your mother. You brought this on yourself. Mila said this with a triumphant look. But I remained calm and collected. Seeing my calm demeanor, Mila said with puffing up her cheeks. What's with the act? I heard you don't even like this house. That's fine by me. Old as it may be, the property's spacious, the neighbors aren't nosy, and above all, Johnny's kind and wealthy. What more could I ask for? Johnny, buoyed by her high opinion of him, suddenly changed his awkward expression. When I first saw Mila at the wedding, it was love at first sight. So I figured, why not live with Mila instead of Pearl, who doesn't even like this house? That's right, Johnny called me after finding my contact in a guest list saying Pearl isn't coming back, so please, come over. I was unsure at first, but how could I say no when he needed me so much? I see. I responded indifferently to Mila's smug love story. Just playing cool, aren't you? You must be so upset. But let me remind you, Johnny's baby is growing inside me. Don't bother coming back here. With that, I decided to graciously accept her invitation with a smile. Really? I'd be delighted to. My unexpected reaction left Johnny and Mila dumbfounded. Pearl, what are you saying? Aren't you angry about my affair? Well, I was surprised at first, but not angry. Besides, I have a new home now. A new home? What are you talking about? Johnny looked utterly bewildered, so I gave him further explanation. You see, I've been house hunting since we got married. This house was fine initially, but it's not practical for children. There are no schools nearby. Mila looked startled by my words. She hadn't considered schooling for her unborn child. Why didn't you discuss this with me? Because you didn't want to move from here. So, I took it upon myself to find something. But that's no longer your concern. What do you mean? Johnny can be so oblivious. He had an affair and even got her pregnant. There's no way we'd be moving together now. I mean, you should stay here with Mila and your baby. You're well off, so just enroll your child in a distant school and drive them back and forth. As I spoke, Johnny nodded. Right. In agreement. Mila, wide-eyed, finally addressed me. Pearl, you're oddly compliant. How can you so easily accept Johnny and me? No, I've just lost faith in Johnny, who never once visited my seriously ill mother in the hospital. I've decided to live with her in the new house. We've arranged for home nursing care. Are you really not angry about the affair? You won't demand compensation later? Johnny is always so self-centered. The epitome of a coddled upbringing. Don't worry. I'm not that petty. I replied with a slight smile. I knew they would face their own karma eventually. And so, Johnny and I divorced. I moved into the new house with my mother. It's barrier-free designed, so she can recover comfortably. It's also close to the hospital, which gives me peace of mind. As for Johnny, he began his married life with Mila in that house. Mila's belly was getting bigger, but there was no hospital nearby. So, for checkups, Johnny apparently had to drive for over an hour to take her. Even then, they might have been able to have a happy married life. After a while, I got a call from Johnny. Hey! Why do we have to leave our house? I thought the day had finally come. Did your uncle visit? Yeah, he did. Did you know and hide it from me? Johnny's uncle is his father's brother. Huh? You should have known. That our house is owned by your uncle. Oh. It seemed Johnny had forgotten that and continued living in that house. I learned this when I visited Johnny's relatives before our marriage. When Johnny's father, the eldest son, was dying, he entrusted the ownership of the family home to his younger brother, the uncle. It seems they thought Johnny was too unreliable to inherit it, even though he was the successor. In other words, Johnny was living there with his uncle's permission. I totally forgot about that. But yesterday, my uncle suddenly came and said, I believe I told my wife that I was selling this land. Why did you keep such an important thing a secret? Hearing this, I think your uncle is quite the actor. I couldn't help but to laugh inwardly. I had told the uncle everything up to our divorce. He was furious and promised to give Johnny a hard time. I'm sorry. I was about to tell you about selling the house, but then you got Mila pregnant. I thought it would be best to leave the rest to you too. But it's okay. You have enough money to move anywhere, right? Yeah, about that. Johnny's voice suddenly turned gloomy. I knew what he was going to say, but pretended not to know. What happened? I got demoted from being the president. My uncle said I was too unreliable and the employees wouldn't follow me. He told me to start over as a regular employee. So my salary is less than half now. Oh, really? I responded nonchalantly, but I already knew all this from Johnny's uncle. Mila is angry. She wanted to remodel and expand the house into a spacious mansion on the land we lived in. After hearing about moving and the salary cut, she hasn't spoken to me since last night. What should I do? Johnny sounded almost tearful. Mila was indeed after Johnny for his money. Well, that's not my problem anymore. You should figure it out yourself. What? No, wait! Johnny tried to stop me, but I didn't care and hung up. The next moment, Mila called. I didn't want to answer, knowing what it was about, but she would probably keep calling if I ignored her. So I reluctantly answered. Mila's voice was furious. "Hey! What are you going to do about this? It's all your fault, Pearl. I thought I had married a rich man." Mila spat out the words I expected. "Well, it's not so bad. Johnny is a kind husband to you. And it's not like he is unemployed. That's not good enough. You knew, didn't you? That we had to move out. And you kept quiet. That's so unfair. What if I had told you earlier? If the ideal life for you became impossible, you would have left. That would be sad for the baby." Mila had no comeback to that. "Whatever life you lead, you're going to have a family now. You need to do your best." I said just that and hung up again. I had no resentment left for losing Johnny. I just realized I had a poor judgment of men. Forced to move, Johnny and Mila apparently moved into Mila's parents' house. Though her parents were angry about Mila marrying Johnny, who took me away, they warmly welcomed them for the sake of their coming grandchild. Then, years later, Johnny and Mila, with their child, came to see me. I hadn't told them where I moved, but they had seen me in town and followed me to find out where I lived. I wondered why they went to such lengths. "Pearl, are you there?" "Actually, I came by because my child's kindergarten entrance exam results were announced today, and we were in the area." Mila barged into my house with her affected tone. Even as a mother now, she still sports flashy makeup and fashion. I didn't really want to see her, but fearing what she might say if I acted coldly, I responded. "You haven't changed." "So? How did it go?" I wasn't interested in Mila, but knowing she'd start something anyway, I asked. "Listen to this. My child got into the best kindergarten in the area." "Ah, so you came all this way to tell me that?" "Well, congratulations." She clearly came to boast. "That's right. My child takes after the father in intelligence and, thanks to resembling me, made a great impression at the interview." Mila droned on with her bragging. "Oh, is that so? Good for you." I replied sarcastically, to which Mila, disliking my tone, glared at me. "Despite someone's doing, we're happily living as a family now. Having a marriage and a family is wonderful, isn't it, Johnny?" Yeah, that's right." Johnny, who had been silent behind Mila, finally spoke up. Their son, indeed resembling Mila, glared at me with a proud expression. He seemed to have inherited Mila's high pride too. "Speaking of the top kindergarten." "Ha ha ha. Single woman like you wouldn't know about kindergartens, right? It's Nakatani Kindergarten nearby." Mila scoffed at me, so I quickly retorted. "What? Who's single? I'm remarried." At this, both Johnny and Mila looked shocked. "You're kidding, right? Isn't this your childhood home with your mother?" "Yes. I have my husband living here with me." As I said this, my husband Barrett appeared. "Guests? Please, come in." "Ah. You are." Seeing Barrett, the two of them exclaimed in surprise. Recognizing them, Barrett responded in a reminiscent tone. "Ah, you must be Christie's parents from the other day's interview." The interviewer, was it?" "Yes, sorry for the late introduction. I'm Barrett, principal of Nakatani Kindergarten. Are you friends of Pearl? Thank you for your support on behalf of my wife." Hearing Barrett was the principal, they froze. "Wait, the principal is Pearl's husband?" "Indeed. Who would have thought someone like you would marry the principal of a prestigious private kindergarten? How did you meet?" Mila sneered at me. "Unlike the old days, I've worked hard on myself. A woman like me. I didn't deserve to be mocked by Mila now." "We met at work. My company was contracted for the kindergarten's reconstruction." "Yes, I was attracted to her hard work, so I initiated our relationship," Barrett said with a shy smile. "Oh, that's right. Barrett, let me introduce them. This is my ex-husband, Johnny, and his wife, Mila, who took him from me." You're making us look bad. That's right. What are you saying in front of the child? Both were flustered, facing the principal of their child's soon-to-be kindergartner. It's a prestigious kindergarten with strict family backgrounds. Knowing their complicated family circumstances might be a problem. Mila timidly asked Barrett. So, about the enrollment. Barrett's expression turned stern for a moment but then softened. Let's see how your child does in our environment first. So, our child can enroll? Johnny and Mila looked relieved. However, they didn't realize how challenging life in the kindergarten could be. Life at the kindergarten turned out to be a disaster for Johnny and Mila. Because in our school, parent connections are strong. Even a hint of bad reputation spreads quickly. So, the rumor that Mila stole the principal's wife's ex-husband spread like wildfire. Since it's a gathering of parents who are serious about their children's education, such rumors quickly isolated Johnny and Mila among the other parents. The parents' behavior negatively impacted the children. Innocent Christy ended up isolated from his friends, crying every day. I want to quit kindergarten. It was sad to see. Eventually, they had to leave the kindergarten, and Johnny's family disappeared from our lives. Later, Barrett heard from another kindergarten principal. Johnny's family had moved Christy to a public kindergarten. However, with many locals there, similar rumors spread. Johnny and Mila gradually found it uncomfortable to stay in the area. Before long, they left Christy behind and went somewhere far away. Recently, Mila's parents have been taking Christy to and from kindergarten and attending events. They're friendly with the neighbors, ensuring Christy can attend kindergarten comfortably, mindful of others. Previously indulgent, Mila's parents seem to have given up on Mila, focusing on raising Christy instead. I was worried about Christy, but hearing this from Barrett, I felt relieved. Sometime later, Mila's parents came to apologize for everything. We're truly sorry for the late apology. We wanted to bring Mila, but she absolutely refused. Is Mila at home? I was surprised, having heard Johnny and his wife were missing. According to her parents, Johnny and Mila got divorced being unable to cope with poverty. Mila returned home alone. But Christy doesn't see her as a mother and ignores her at home. Time passed, and I gave birth to my first child, a daughter, at a local hospital. I made many mom friends. Though I lost a childhood friend, I look forward to spending time with moms in similar situations. Barrett took paternity leave and is being a supportive father. This might be my happiest time. No, I shall continue enjoying parenthood, blessed with a good family and friends. Like my mother, a single mom, I want to shower my daughter with love. Even if I once went in the wrong direction, I'll trust my daughter, family, friends, and more importantly in myself. I vow to live strongly as a mother. Did the luggage arrive? My parents are moving in with us starting today. Please take care of them. What a joke. Those were the first words that came out of him. As if I wasn't angry enough with James already. Just how selfish can James be? Well, that's that. I'm sure you'll be fine. I knew what James was up to. He wanted to keep me in check by bringing his parents over while hoping to receive various forms of support himself. Anger surged through me, but I quickly smirked. Oh, I've already moved out. What? I had to suppress my laughter at James's dumbfounded voice. It seemed he had forgotten who owned that house. My brother Liam, who was listening in, was also trying hard not to laugh. Did you forget? That house originally belonged to my grandparents, and it's in my name. Oh. So, whose permission were you planning to get for this cohabitation? The last thing I wanted was to let such people into my home. Natalie, who enjoys harassing me, and Joseph, who does what he pleases to his grandson without caring about his feelings. And so I continued. Did you think I didn't know anything? You'll pay the price for this. My name is Layla. I'm a 32-year-old working mother on parental leave. I have a husband, James, and a 1-year-old son, Oliver. Oliver has recently started walking on his own, so he requires constant attention. Yet, his toddling around is incredibly endearing, and it's comforting when he calls me with his small mouth. Oliver really loves his mom, huh? I met James, the father of our son Oliver, through work. My family runs a traditional bakery. Every day, we bake delicious bread, and with smiles, we sell it alongside my parents and brother. Excuse me, miss. Could I have your name and contact details? One day, James, a regular customer, approached me. Seeing James blush as he asked me out, I found him endearing, and we started dating. Your cooking is delicious. Is it? Thank you. Yeah. So, will you continue to cook for me? By my side. And so, we got married without any issues. My parents were overjoyed by our marriage, but my younger brother Liam always seemed to be looking on with skepticism. But he didn't particularly object, so I believe he's happy for us. Liam says he will take over the shop because living with us would just wear James out. So with my father's suggestion, the three of us are living in my deceased grandparents' house. We plan to watch Oliver grow up together here. One day, I took Oliver shopping with me. Oliver was holding my hand and toddling as hard as he could. Oh, Oliver! We came together. Now, say hello to your grandma. Oh my God, Oliver! When we bought bread at my parents' bakery, the regulars and my parents greeted Oliver with smiles. Oliver, unafraid of strangers, was always smiling. Since our house and the bakery are about an hour's drive apart, we visit my parents' home about once a month. And when Oliver and I, in high spirits, returned home. What? Don't tell me. The entrance door was unlocked. And there, familiar shoes greeted us. And, as expected, I sighed. Natalie, we did ask you to call ahead before coming, didn't we? Finally back, are you? Where on earth have you been? Ignoring my words, my mother-in-law laid there, watching TV. She probably entered using the spare key James had given her. I sighed again at Natalie, who never listens, no matter how many times I tell her. Come on, don't dawdle. Get on with the chores. I'll take care of Oliver. Saying so, she grabbed Oliver from me, telling me to clean up the mess from the snacks she had eaten. I wish she'd clean up after herself and not touch my son with her crumb-covered hands. But if I tell her so, it would result in her complaining, as if I'm dirty, and to Oliver, she would exaggerate and say, "What a scary mommy." Excuse me, Natalie. Please don't say weird things to Oliver. I retorted to Natalie and took sleepy Oliver to his room. Then, enduring Natalie's sarcastic remarks, I continued with the chores. Honestly, I wish I could just ignore Natalie, but if I take my eyes off her for even a moment, she would try to take Oliver and leave. You're such a bore. I'll be leaving now. Saying so, Natalie left. Which was a relief for me, so I saw her out with a smile. Natalie can be such a handful. Muttering to myself, I finished the chores I had left midway. I understand Natalie wants to see Oliver, her only grandchild. But I really wish she would stop coming to our house every day, using the spare key to let herself in. Hey, could you please take the spare key away from Natalie? What? Why? After James came home, I talked to him about Natalie. James looked troubled even after hearing me out. I glared at James. If you don't take the spare key from Natalie, I'll change the locks. And I won't give you a key this time. Okay, all right. I'll take the spare key from Mom. Are you happy? Pressured by me, James reluctantly agreed. I thought this would make things a bit better. But I was about to be disappointed. I'm going to take the spare key from her, so could you come to my parents' house with me this weekend? James asked me. Reluctantly, but wanting to see the key taken away myself for the sake of my mind's peace, I agreed to go to my in-laws with Oliver. You're finally here. There's plenty of housework for you, so get moving. We'll take care of Oliver. As soon as we entered my in-laws' house, Oliver was taken by my in-laws, and I was burdened with chores. Glancing at James, he stubbornly avoided my gaze. James tricked me. He set me up. Despite feeling betrayed, the odds were 3-1 against me. Wanting to leave the dusty and dirty in-laws' house as soon as possible, I quickly got to work. While I was cleaning, I heard Oliver's loud cries. "Oliver! What's wrong?" Rushing over in a panic, I found Oliver crying and squirming in Joseph's arms, reaching out towards me. I quickly took Oliver from Joseph's grasp. "What did you do to Oliver?" "Quiet down. We didn't do anything to him." "Yeah, that's right." When I glared, James, who had turned practically invisible, explained what happened. Apparently, Joseph grabbed Oliver as he was trying to follow me and forcibly held him back. Despite Oliver's desire to come to me, Joseph was tossing him around as if they were just playing. That's why Oliver was bawling. That's the reason I rushed over. Oliver is such a crybaby for a boy. Exactly. It's because he's being raised by a bad mother. He should be with us. I can't leave Oliver in a place like this. Excuse us. I hugged Oliver tightly and stormed out of the in-laws' house. I shouldn't have trusted James's words. I'm sorry, Oliver. Once home, I put the worn-out Oliver to bed and vented to my mother about everything. James, who I left at his parents' house, didn't even bother to contact us. About an hour later, the doorbell rang. "Sis, can I talk to you?" "Liam? What's up all of a sudden?" "Mom said to check on you. I brought this as a gift." There stood Liam, holding a loaf of bread from our family bakery. He offered to do the housework for me, saying I must be tired, and cheerfully took care of Oliver when he woke up, brightening both our moods. "You're a lifesaver, Liam." "It's nothing. We're family, after all. Mom also said you can come back home anytime." Hearing that, I felt a deep sense of relief knowing I had such a supportive family. James returned a few hours after Liam left. He had the nerve to come back after eating at his parents' house. "I've been hurt by all of this, and Oliver too." "I'm really sorry. But it's not like my parents meant any harm." Oliver was crying. He would show signs of remorse when I got angry. But it didn't seem sincere, and I couldn't trust him anymore. I was even starting to think about divorce. "James, wake up." "James?" When I woke up in the morning, James was nowhere to be found. Instead, there was a note left behind. "I'm heading to Los Angeles for a business trip starting today. Such things should be said in person." Well, it's less irritating without him here. And taking some distance might help us cool down. If he's not here, changing the locks shouldn't be a problem, right? This will give us some peace for a while, Oliver. Oliver, looking at me laughing, laughed too, even though he didn't understand the words. With him by my side, I didn't need James. That was what I was thinking. So, we started living separately for a while. It seemed he was on a long business trip and very busy, making it difficult for him to return. I really miss seeing Oliver. And I miss your cooking. The distance between us led to reconciliation, and we were reporting to each other via video call once a week. Meanwhile, there was no contact from Natalie. Despite changing the locks, I half expected her to keep ringing the doorbell, but nothing happened. It was peaceful, yet inside me was this feeling of an eerie calm before the storm. "Sis, something terrible has happened." That's when I got a call from Liam, sounding panicked. Listening to him, I learned a secret about James. "That idiot. I'll never forgive him." Filled with anger, I began to prepare for retaliation. My parents, informed by Liam, also helped, and everything was ready 2 days later. Just as Liam and I were about to leave the house with Oliver, there was a knock. I have a delivery for you." Is that so?" "Please leave it here for now." A huge amount of luggage arrived at our house. The names on it were my in-laws. I immediately called James. "Did the luggage arrive?" My parents are moving in with us starting today. Please take care of them. What a joke. That was the first thing he said. As if I wasn't angry enough with James already. How selfish can James be? Well, that's that. I'm sure you'll be fine. I knew James's intentions well enough. He wanted to use his parents moving in as leverage over me, hoping to get various kinds of support from them. Rage surged through me, but I quickly smirked back at him. Oh, I've already moved out. What? James's dumbfounded voice was hard to hold back laughter at. Apparently, he had forgotten who owned that house. Even Liam, listening by, struggled to keep his laughter in check. Did you forget? That house originally belonged to my grandparents, and it's in my name. Oh. So, whose permission were you planning to get for this cohabitation? The idea of letting those people into my home was out of the question. Natalie, who enjoys harassing me, and Joseph, who does what he pleases to his grandson without caring about his feelings. And so I continued. Did you think I didn't know anything? You'll pay the price for this. Who would want to live with a husband who cheats while on business trips? Hold on, moved out? Exactly as I said. I've already sold the house. What? Why would you do something so drastic without telling me? My parents are supposed to arrive there this afternoon. It seemed he had planned to force the cohabitation on me without my consent. The reason Natalie hadn't dropped by unannounced recently must have been because she was busy packing for the move. I can only imagine how tough it must have been to clear out the cluttered in-laws' house. But that was none of my business. That's not my problem. Don't you dare joke with me. You're the one joking, aren't you? Your parents' belongings are in front of the entrance. Goodbye. With that, I hung up the phone. He tried calling back immediately, but I rejected the call and blocked all his contacts. Sorry for making you wait. It's fine. Let's go. I truly owed Liam. The revelation of James's affair came through him. Liam had spotted James arm in arm with an unfamiliar woman at Universal Studios in Los Angeles, where he had gone with his girlfriend, Emily. I hadn't seen James since the wedding, but I remembered him because he was a regular at the bakery. Liam managed to capture evidence of the affair and informed me. Then, with my parents' help, I quickly started making arrangements. Among the bakery's regulars was a private investigator who gathered further evidence. Through connections, a lawyer was introduced to me. A real estate friend of my father's quickly took action regarding the house. The house was renovated before you two moved in, making it very appealing. It's close to a school and within walking distance to a train station. So, it will sell high and it would be easy to find a buyer. True to his word, the house was sold quickly. And today was supposed to be the closing day, but instead, a massive amount of in-laws' belongings arrived. Welcome back, Layla. And you too, Oliver. Both of you, welcome home. You must be tired. Thanks to my parents' warm welcome, I let out a sigh of relief. I'm home. As I said it with a smile, Oliver too chirped in energetically. Everyone laughed in response. Now, all that's left is to fight back. Mama will do her best, so cheer for me, okay? To my words, Oliver showed his usual adorable smile. Ah, Layla. Are you the shop assistant today? That's right. Hope you buy a lot. Then, I started manning the storefront while taking care of Oliver. The regulars greeted me with smiles. Being back at the shop was a joyful time for me. It was thinking so to myself when James and the in-laws appeared. Layla. Layla. I stopped what I was doing, handed Oliver over to my mother, and confronted James and his parents. Let's not disturb the customers here, shall we step outside? I don't care about the other customers. Forget about them, how could you be so selfish? Oh, like going on a business trip and cheating is any better? My words caused the regulars to give James cold looks. Noticing that, James went silent for a moment, but he retorted back. We plan to live in that house, and we sold our home for it. Where do you expect us to live now? And according to James, it seems like Layla is the one who's been cheating. The in-laws started shouting that. I was taken aback by Joseph's words. Me, cheating? That's absolutely impossible. I am devoted solely to Oliver. What are you talking about? I've never cheated. Lies. A young man was seen leaving our house. A young man coming and going from that house, that could only be. Must be my younger brother, Liam. What? Your brother? Didn't I tell you? I have a younger brother. As we were talking, Liam appeared from the back. Seeing his face, James looked surprised. It's been since the wedding, James. What? That's really your brother? So? You thought I was cheating and without checking, and you cheated yourself? The business trip was real. However, he had met a woman there and developed a relationship. And without returning home, he chose to nurture his love instead. And then, you went into debt for her. What? At my words, the in-laws now turned their gaze sharply towards James. Meanwhile, James's face turned pale, wondering, how did you know? Unlike you, I did my investigation properly. Not satisfied with just our joint account money, you resorted to borrowing, right? Was it $20,000? When I checked the account after a long time, there were only a few dollars left, which was a shock. Basically, our living expenses were covered by the salary I had before going on maternity leave. That money was deposited into my personal account from before we were married, securely saved without being touched. For the joint account, we had agreed to deposit money regularly for Oliver's future expenses. But this is too much. Shall we let others decide then? My house, inherited from my grandparents and in my name, where James decided on his own to move his parents in, while he indulged in affairs and debts. Me, angered by James, selling my house and moving back to my parents. Who's in the wrong here, huh? At my words, the regulars glared at James and his family. Realizing they were at a disadvantage, James and his family backed down. Could you please leave? With a smile, I said that, and James and his party hastily left the store. After successfully driving them away, I received applause from the regulars, making me blush and smile shyly. Later, for the affair and for storming into the bakery during business hours, causing a disturbance, I demanded compensation from James and his family. James, already burdened with debt from his affair, and his inherently irresponsible in-laws had no money. Thus, they had to sell whatever they could to come up with the money. Days later, James came back to me, saying, I truly regret everything. Please help me. Saying this, James clung to me desperately. I sighed deeply at James. Do you think I can trust your apologies? No, this time I really am. Enough. If you keep pestering me, I'll call the police. James looked dejected at my words. I gave him a cold stare. I know why you wanted to live with those two. James shivered at my words. The in-laws had always complained about their small house and wanted someone for housekeeping. Essentially, they wanted to live in that house with me being their housekeeper. James, always swayed by me, thought having his parents around would make me listen. If they managed to cohabit, he planned to use the saved money for his affair or debt repayment. He probably hoped they'd find my savings account from before I was single. Am I wrong? How do you know all that? Working in customer service means observing people. Plus, I married you because I loved you, even if you approached me first. If you love someone even once, you watch them closely, and living together, I've come to understand your way of thinking. James looked down. And then James, in anger, tried to hit me. Damn it! But his hand was stopped before it could reach me by someone who intervened. That's going too far. Liam glared sharply at James. Liam has been practicing martial arts since he was young, so he's in very good shape. James, gripped and glared at by my strong brother, completely lost his energy and slumped. Don't you ever show your face in front of my sister again. Shouted by Liam, James left with a pathetic sound. Thanks, Liam. Don't mention it. If anything happens, just let me know. I'll chase them away. Liam, saying this with a smile, seemed incredibly reliable. You used to be such a crybaby, always hiding behind me. Come on, stop it. I'm an adult now. And I have things to protect. Right. You definitely can't become like that man. Liam laughed at my words, of course. I knew he would protect Emily properly. Both of you, I need your help. Okay. Called by my mom, we returned to the store. After that, James, seemingly terrified of Liam, didn't show his face again. Furthermore, when the divorce papers were sent through a lawyer, he signed them without fuss. And so, we were officially divorced. Actually, the regulars were furious about what happened, saying, "How dare you make Layla suffer?" According to my mom, the regulars had spread the word about what happened at the store. It became a rumor, and employees at James's company got the wind of it. James quickly lost his place at the company due to the widespread knowledge. Under the cold gaze of his colleagues, James quit his job. I know I did wrong, so please help us. I learned that from a call from Natalie. I had completely forgotten I still had the in-laws' contact information saved because I've been so busy. What exactly do you want help with? That would be financial support, of course. Unfortunately, I'm not kind enough to help someone who has harassed me. With that, I hung up the phone. This time, I made sure to block the contact information properly. Afterward, James was unable to come up with the money for compensation and child support and ended up incurring even more debt. As for the affair partner, it seems she dumped James quickly after realizing he wasn't single. I heard rumors that the in-laws also had to take on debt and now work tirelessly from morning to night alongside James. Mommy. What's the matter, Oliver? On the other hand, we were living peacefully. We take turns looking after Oliver, enjoying our days with plenty of free time. And when I stand at the shop front, the regulars dote on me. Separating from James allowed us to find happiness. Let's play with Mama today. At my words, Oliver beamed with an angelic smile. Some time later, our family grew. Liam's wife, Emily, came to live with us. Emily adores Oliver. I'm so happy to have this little guy as my nephew. With Emily, I think we can build a happy home. Liam said this with a smile. If someone who is as kind as James chose Emily to be his partner, I'm sure everything will be fine. If there's ever a problem, next time, I'll be the one to help. Since then, there's been no contact from James and his family. Thanks to that, we've been able to enjoy a very peaceful life. All right, Mommy's going to do her best today, so you stay with Grandma, okay? From now on, the 5 of us will watch over Oliver's growth. And today, as always, I set out to make delicious bread with determination. Years later, our family grew even more. Liam and Emily got married and had a child. On top of that, someone who wanted to be with me appeared. If anyone tries to make Mommy cry, I'll protect her. Oliver has also grown and now says things cute like that. Together with Oliver, I will continue to run the bakery.